Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 5 p.m. on Friday. Welcome to Financial Focus University. My name is Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO, and I will be your host for the next 45 minutes. We have a very wonderful show for you tonight. The first part of our show, our first segment, will have to do with our weekly Bidenomics segment, where we will cover not just the financial stock market sections of the week, but we'll also talk a little bit about the bond market as well as inflation and how it relates to interest rates. Our second segment, I believe, will be a very wonderful segment. This will be our second segment on a section we call Budget and Politics. If you remember, several weeks ago, we had Mr. Christian Amato as the first person on that subject, where we talked about his candidacy as well as his thoughts on the New York State budget. We have a wonderful guest by the name of Miss Mary Moss, who is not running for office as far as I know. We'll find out in a moment. But she happens to be a very good analyst when it comes to looking at New York City and New York State budgets. She has created thousands of jobs in the New York City metropolitan area, and her specialty is in economic development. And we hope to have a wonderful 20-minute conversation with her. And then our third and final segment will be our traditional last segment called Ask the Question. We have a very good question today. It's from a woman in City Island by the name of Elise. And sadly, in 2021, her and her husband separated. So her question is, they separated and they have a child. And of course, both of them want to claim the child. So who legally can claim the child, who cannot? Very good income tax question. That will be our show. Let's go right into Bidenomics. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about Bidenomics, as we know with our first segment, we always start off by talking about how the week went on a Monday through Friday scenario. So let's go through it piece by piece, and then we'll sum it all up for the week. So when we talk about Monday, if you remember, on Monday, President Putin said again, I'm going to go to war. I don't care what I ruin as far as my economy. I'm going to go to war. So how did the stock markets and financial markets do when he made that announcement at the end of business day on Monday? The markets went down 0.3%. On Tuesday, however, President Biden had a response for the world. He said, we're going to get together with the G7 and we're going to kill the Russian economy. Now, I'm paraphrasing, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, the markets responded very well to that. The markets went up 1.2% at the end of business day on Tuesday. So what happened on Wednesday? Well, ladies and gentlemen, now another situation comes into our economy. Because we have this war, because we have COVID that we still don't know if we're, up or down or sideways. Well, now something funny is starting to happen. Our United States interest rates are starting to go up. And that would be wonderfully okay if long-term interest rates were going up, but they are not. So if you've heard the phrase inverted curve throughout your travels during the week, that means that short-term interest rates are going up, long-term interest rates are not. What does that mean as far as the U.S. economy? most economists, including myself, mean that is the first signal to a United States recession. So that was very, very concerning to the market. The markets at the end of business day on Wednesday went down negative 1.3%. On Thursday, however, we received more data from the United States government. We found out that, as tradition, on Thursday, we got our jobless claims number. Jobless claims mean how many people are working and or not working. And of course, that number was down. Less people are applying for unemployment. More people are starting to work part-time, full-time, and of course now remote. How did the market respond to that? It went up. It went up 1.3%. These gyrations are a little bit crazy, right, guys? Going up 1% one day and going down another percent another day. So what happened on Friday? Well, guess what, guys? Just like I'm tired telling you this by now, well, the market today got tired too. So with no significant news coming out today, the market's closed up today at 0.2%. Put that all together on a wild and crazy stock market week, that means the market actually went up for the week. It went up 1.1%. Congratulations to everyone. But if you look further down on that PowerPoint slide, remember, we're still keeping track of how the stock market did for 2022. Well, even with that 1.1 gain, anyone that was in the markets from January 1 to today are still down. They're still down negative 2.9%. And then you'll see a little fascinating data point that we keep here, ladies and gentlemen, but it will prove my point a little bit further. As you'll see, we have what we call the Bob Press Index. Now, if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll see that it's indicated for 5 weeks. Remember now, from January 1 to this week, there are 12 weeks. So 7 weeks ago, when the market was doing really, really bad, Mr. Press gave me a call. Mr. Press is not a client of mine, just a very concerned friend trying to get free advice. Everybody hear that? Free. And we were talking for a little bit, and he said, and I just said to him at that moment in time, I says, you know, the market's looking funny. I didn't go into too many specifics, but his response to me was, I'm all in. Well, for the last 5 weeks, Mr. Press now seems to be turning this index around. For the last 5 weeks, the market has gone up. It's gone up 3.1%. So if Bob was in the market for the last 5 weeks, he would have made 3.1%. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, Bob has been, like most people, in the market since January 1. So we're still down 2.9%. When we go to the next slide, though, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that, from a Bidenomics point of view, are hitting people every day. What you're looking at there, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call an inflation chart. You'll see an inflation chart from 2019 on the left-hand side all the way to January of 2022. So this is a 3-year chart, January to January. And just like, if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, I showed you a chart on gasoline last week, you notice that from January 1, 2022 to today, which is sadly and coincidentally the length of time that Joe Biden has been in office, you'll see that it's gone up significantly. Prior to 2021, going back to 2019, you'll see the inflation was at 2%. Yes, it went down, but when it came back up, it's still level at 2%. As of January, it is now at 8%. Well, what does that mean year over year, right? Because that's a year over year increase from 2% to 8%. Well, that means that real hurt, it went up 76%. Inflation went up 76%. Where do I feel that? How do I feel that? Ladies and gentlemen, let me share some numbers with you. Okay? I just said that inflation went up 76%. Inflation follows interest rates. So if you're getting 1% in the bank, well, guess what? You should be now getting about 1.7. If you were making 2% in the bank, well, what are you making now? You should be making about 3.4%. If you were making 3% in the bank, what should you be making? You should be making 5.1%. You think I'm speculating? Let me share some United States Treasury numbers with you as of today. With United States Treasury 1-year notes a year ago today, they were at 0.2%. They are now at 1.6%, a year-over-year increase of 87%. Over the course of the 2-year Treasury, 1 year ago, that interest rate was at 0.3%. It is now at 2.3%. Again, an 87% increase in growth. Let's go out 5 years. If we go out 5 years, well, the interest rate 5 years ago was at 1%. I'm sure every grandma remembers that. Well, as of today, that rate is 2.5%. So as you can see, and just so you know, that increase is at 40%. So why is it indicating to the 80-something% I mentioned earlier? That's because, again, I said short-term interest rates are going up while long-term interest rates are going down. The correlation here, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about Bidenomics are several things. Number one, we're still in a war, and you can see with the gyrations in the market, it is very important that you talk to your financial advisor now. If you own a 401k plan, a 403b plan, I'm sure you own financial instruments like stocks and bonds. To give you an example with the bonds, the other way around. If you remember, I said a moment ago, short-term interest rates went up, right? 87%. Well, what if in your bond portfolio, it was the other way around? What if you were holding something of a high value, right? And then it went down like that. Well, then that means that wasn't an increase. That was a decrease. That's what's happening with some United States bond accounts right now. Because remember, when interest rates go up with U.S. bond mutual funds, rates come down. So right now, Bidenomics is bringing us a double whammy. The stock markets are still doing hiccups. The bond markets are doing even more hiccups. Some of those hiccups translate to good bank accounts. Yes, interest rates at banks are still very low, but as we spoke about for the last 2 weeks, because of Bidenomics, I would say at this current rate, by the fall, and if anyone knows, and I'll remind everyone, the Federal Reserve Board has already announced not once, not twice, not 3, but 4 times that they plan on raising interest rates in the future. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you might hear me on the show say, come September, we're all going to run to the bank for higher interest rates. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in a moment.
World Inkers Monthly magazine is a fine source for your literary interests. It's an all-source magazine with poetry, prose, and essays and articles, as well as interviews. It's all full-color art and photography from a variety of voices and artists. You will find this magazine entertaining. This is an all-purpose readership, and we are looking for new voices. This sleek, full-color edition of World Inkers Monthly magazine will be something pleasant for your eyes as well as for your mind. And we're looking for authors for 1 book promotion in the magazine. If you're a business, we want to promote your business. You may submit your book reviews, your academic or non-academic articles on the humanities and the arts, as well as your literary writing and creative output to publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. World Inkers Monthly magazine does not spare any ink. Keep inking for World Inkers Monthly Magazine.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Financial Focus University. Our second segment, Budget and Politics, is what I always, or I hope to show to you, will be a fascinating subject. When I meet with clients on a daily basis and we talk about a very simple analysis of a budget, right, that everyone works with, right? We have income that comes in, right, whether it's through wage income, whether it's through gambling income, whatever income is coming from, right? And then we have to make sure that we're not overspending, right? We have to make sure that our debits equal our credits, that we have enough money in the bank account to take care of our necessities, take care of our needs. And then, of course, if we want to get a little luxurious, this is why we have our next guest. Hi, Mari. Mari, I can't hear you.
Hello, how are you? Sorry about that.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. 3
How
months
are you?
in to 2022. I'm
How
doing all
are
right.
you?
How are you?
Not too bad. You're looking at an income tax man during income tax season, so my gray hair is getting grayer by the minute. But I
Got
want to
it.
thank you for coming on our show. I want to be sure everything's okay. I notice you're outside.
No, I'm actually inside
Oh,
at my desk, but
okay.
you
Okay.
can't tell. And there's I don't know, the light should be positioned a little differently, but yeah, I'm
No,
in my
you're
I'm at my
fine.
desk.
You're fine. I just want to be sure because I saw the camera shake a little bit. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to welcome you to the show. We are a show of personal finance, but this particular segment has to do with personal finance, or maybe I should say government finance, right? Because if you heard my intro, government finance is really no different than personal finance, right? We have to be sure our money equals what we're doing, right? So
Mhm.
when we talk
Right.
about New York State budget, I want to go into that from both sides, right? The income as well as the spending. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Me, okay. So I've been a long time community advocate, and became vice president
Mari,
we just
Mari, I apologize. You seem to have a frozen type of connection.
technical. Okay, so we did a lot of advocating for young people to get involved in the political process, civic engagement, getting them to just register to vote. Period. That was it. Just get them involved, and that really worked out well in our in the community. As time went on, I started like just doing more in my community when I saw like a lot of violence and happening around me from the time I was 14 to 23. I started up.
Whoa. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I had a feeling Mari was on a bad connection, but she's going to come back.
Pay homage to from there. Back to my work, that was my first job at college. Back to New York, and I worked at the Marriage Blige Foundation for the advancement of women. Now the focus was on developing, and part of that was developing programs that were going to for women. I scheduled a meeting with all the White House with Obama's aides and officials, and we were talking a lot about the Violence Against Women Act, which was a need for was a major need for women to be able to connect to through the work that we were doing. So that's what we did. And from there, I started to, I worked for the city under Bloomberg originally. After I worked with Bloomberg, a lot of time, well, my time in working with Bloomberg, I'm getting a lot of input from people that they can't hear me or the reception isn't good.
Actually, it's better now. Actually, it's better now.
Okay, thank you. So, in working in the Bloomberg administration, I came in working under Hurricane Sandy. That was a lot of recovery that we had to do with businesses to help them basically overcome the obstacles that they were not expecting because they were hit by this travesty or tragedy. So we helped a lot of businesses get back on their feet. And then I helped with a lot of businesses, new businesses, get started. So in all, it was a minimum of $1 billion worth of businesses and a minimum of 5,000 jobs across the 5 boroughs. During that time, I also got, involved in my community board, Manhattan Community Board 10 in Harlem. And there I started to work on my master's degree where I was working on a policy to like a very granular, detailed policy for the flourishing of the economy on the local basis, because we were developing the district need statements. And the district need statements are created community board through community board to identify the needs of the community and then to find ways to triage or provide support to those needs in the community. So that's what I was focused on doing. We piloted a program for a little while, not a program, but piloted an idea for a little while. But we really needed to extend it because it really could have done a lot of good to the community. So that's my story in a nutshell, but that's what.
But tell us what you're doing right now.
So right now I'm doing some consulting work. I'm also, just basically providing a lot of support in the community. We Love Harlem initiative is something started to fill gaps in the community where we see needs to support positive events in the community. So when people are doing the things that are needed in the community, like stand up against violence or doing things of positive nature, we are there to support that and also create civic engagement.
So then I want to get your analysis as well as your opinion as a former strategist, as a former lobbyist, in regards to what's happening with our current budget. In the beginning of January, our current governor, and I want to talk about the New York State budget because I want to keep it in line with the electoral season. If we're lucky enough to have you next year, I like to talk about a city budget. But when we talk about the state, in the beginning of January, Governor Hochul gave out her executive budget. And she made a fascinating statement when she issued it out. She said she believed that it was time for a better, fair, and more inclusive vision of the American dream. And her budget represented the New York dream. And in that budget, and I want to go over some of the pieces with you, but some of the major pieces I counted seem to show outlays of maybe $50 billion. And again, when we talk about a simple budget, right, that's fine if you want to spend $50 billion, but then we have to worry about not just where you're going to spend it, but whether you even got it in the first place. So let's talk about where she wants to spend it. And I want you to tell me what you believe in your experience is the reality of these things. Sound good? Okay.
Yeah, there was a little freezing there. Hi.
That's okay. We're freezing. We're freezing.
Oh, hopefully not.
I'm going to ask you some questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions about the New York State budget, and I'd like to hear your analysis and opinion on them, all right?
Okay.
Very good. So you have children. You have three wonderful
Yes.
children that I want to hear about a little bit later. But this question relates to childcare because according to Governor Hochul, she wants to increase childcare by $900 million. And she indicates that within her budget, it should, over the span of 3 years, increase childcare to the state about 11%. Could you analogize that for me a little bit?
That is a miracle for working families. For working families, that means a lot. And so she clearly seems to understand that. It's a $216 billion budget on the state level. So, you know, childcare is a crucial factor with so many people of New York City and state that work every day, and they still have to provide coverage for their children. And a lot of times in you know what your salary is doesn't always equate to the exorbitant prices of childcare and quality childcare at that. You know, you might be able to get, some people are blessed to have relatives or friends or so forth to support them, but some people just, you know, they have to go to, you know, nurseries or different places for their children to be looked after, and some quality care. So being able to support that is exceptionally, it's tremendously important for working families. Tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you.
I used to say this about in the city. I used to say when I was working in the city, they called all around the table, they had us meet with the chief of staff. They said, what do you have to say about, this or that, different ideas going around the table. And, you know, I was a new mom. I just had, I had two little girls at the time. I said, if only there was a way that companies, they really roll out the red carpet for their working moms. I mean, some of them have, childcare facilities right on site. So you can drop your child off right at the childcare facility downstairs and go right up to your office, go downstairs, pick up the child and go, and it's like, that's like ideal. But for city workers, especially, some of them are not they're not all making the same amount of money. So being able to have that kind of support is tremendous. And I've seen even on the state level, they do have child care facilities now as the agencies. So that's a merit. I don't know if they've always had it like that. So, for example, at the unemployment office on the state, they do have child care facilities. And that's a beautiful thing for parents, especially if they work on the state and city level.
I have a question for you already, believe it or not, Marvin.
Oh,
it is from Miss Griffith, I believe the name is. And I'm just going to read what it says. It says, it is also very helpful to get the youth involved in civic engagement and voting when the New York State legislature passed the law that allows 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote. And you're smiling from ear to ear. And Ms. Griffin also says, don't forget about your work with the DYCD Neighborhood Advisory Board. So I'm going to guess you know this person.
Thank you. Yes, I do know Farine very well. She's very strong, like activist, leader. I shouldn't say where he works because that would be, but she works in advocacy. So that's she'll be chair of the Department of Youth and Community Development Neighborhood Advisory Board that I serve on in Community 10 in Harlem. So I completely agree with what you said. I think anything that was because the more proactive we are about getting engaged in the process, the more they understand the time to step away from violence, because now they can do something productive, like make a decision about their future versus taking it in their own hands. In a way, they can take their future in their own hands by voting. That's the best way.
Now, the next question I'm going to ask you, and I'm still keeping children in mind. So I'm starting with children, and of course I talked about childcare, but I want to talk about some of the other necessities that I believe in. I'm a single parent, but I mean, I don't have any children, I meant. So I'm just looking at this from my mother's eyes, really. So when I think of children and I look at the budget and I think of childcare, I also think about teachers. And in the budget, according to Governor Hochul, she wants to increase the budget for teachers by $3.1 billion. She wants to make sure that a lot of what she calls hiring of staff is done over the course of the next 2-3 years. Do you think that's an appropriate allocation? Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I'm sure some can see where, hey, Mary. Mary, did you hear the question? Mari? Mari? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we're trying to work out these internet issues, right? We're in the 21st century, but we still have 20th century technology we're dealing with, right? 5G at the end of the day is no better than 2G. It just caused a whole bunch of more questions. So we're going to go to the next segment. And of course, we're going to hope that Mari can join us and we'll continue. So let's talk about ask the questions for a moment. So this question, again, as I said at the beginning of the show, comes from Elise from City Island. Elise from City Island sadly brings us that in 2021, she is in the process of getting a divorce. She's currently separated, of course, has questions about taxes and separation. Anyone that is separated should definitely speak to an income tax advisor, because income tax preparation for separated people gets very tricky. The ones that know that how it hurts them the most are the people after the fact that wind up doing it wrong. So Elise said, guys, we're getting a divorce soon. Right now we're separated and we have a child. So who should claim the child? What is the right thing to do? And again, just like a lot of things when we're getting separated, that's a very tricky question, not just emotionally, of course, and not just financially, which those are separate questions within itself, but from the IRS standpoint. So I am going to suggest to Elise, and I asked Elise to watch this afternoon so I can share these thoughts with her, is the first thing I told her is she should call up her lawyer and get divorced ASAP, right? We sometimes, believe it or not, we just let these things sit. We just, let the lawyer take care of what we think is going to be the quickest thing to do. And some lawyers are trying to get it done right away. Some lawyers have it sit on their desk, and of course they collect fees as it's sitting on the desk. Legitimately, there could be a contested versus uncontested divorce problem. The IRS doesn't give a damn. The IRS says at the end of December 31st of the calendar year, if you are not divorced, you are either happily married or separated, one of the two. And if you're separated, you are, according to the IRS, in the highest tax bracket you can be in. What do I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to share a quick income tax thought with you. 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, when they created the IRS tax brackets, they didn't create it based on levels of income, right? Because in the year 1900, nobody was working. There was no industrial revolution. So what did they count it on? They counted on one thing: white, wealthy landowners, right? So keeping that in mind, they created a tax system of a very Christian-based thought. The thought being, in very general terms, okay, I'm single. Well, I'm in this tax bracket. And now all of a sudden, I got a child. And now my income taxes went lower. I might have 2 children. My income tax bracket went lower. Now I got married. Now my income tax bracket went lower. So while these wonderful things are happening in our family life, our taxes from our filing standpoint is getting lower. Oh, we got separated? Bang! All of that's out the window, and now both people, not one, not the husband, not the wife, but both, are in the highest tax bracket. So again, get to step 1, make sure you can get that divorce ASAP. It automatically puts you in a lower tax bracket. But now once that happens, right, well, who files the child? Well, now you have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, or at least does, right, to say to the husband, if they're not going to kill each other, to say to the husband, you know what, why don't we either decide that I'll claim the child or you'll claim the child. And whoever claims the child, they should file as head of household. Why? Because they have a child. As I said in the first minute, hi, Mary, will you give me a moment? Or now I don't know what to do. Do I talk to you? Do I keep doing this? Do I look at the chart? Do I go home? What do I do? So, Mary, I want you to bear with me. And because you have children, I don't want you to get married or divorced yet, but these rules still might apply. So bear with me for a moment, okay? So again, ladies and gentlemen, you want to get that divorce ASAP. The person claiming the child files head of household, which allows the other person to file single. Notice head of household and single are both lower than the separated bracket, right? Now, of course, whoever files the child, well, they're going to get the biggest bang for the dollar. Now, does that eliminate the other person getting that bang? Yes or no? They can both get the bang. Now, it won't be 100%, right? It'll be 100% times 2. I mean, divided by 2. So each will get 50% of the bang. How do they do that? It's called an IRS spousal support. Just a form. Just to stay on that for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, again, separated families are a terrible thing. It's an emotional thing. And of course, you want to get the best legal guidance, not just for, that situation, but you also want to get the best tax and financial guidance because, when when finances are intermingled, and that means taxes, there's a lot more than the legal system to worry about. So again, you want to see those scenarios. But to answer Elisa's question, A, call your lawyer, get a divorce. B, talk to your husband, see who wants to file the child. And C, you can, no matter who files the child, through an IRS spousal agreement, can both claim the child because you both agree to do it together. So Elisa, I hope that was helpful. And Myri, what did you think?
So I think of the numbers that went through my mind as you were talking about that. Number one, here it has algorithm. Child support versus alimony situations. There's an algorithm. It's very easily done. You just plug in the numbers. How much does the spouse make? How much does the wife, or how much does the husband make? How much does the wife make? Or how much does the significant other make? You put those information in, you put those numbers in, and it tells you exactly what should be allocated by the two that are, as they are getting divorced. Now,
we lost her again. We got her again. We had her again. See, I haven't even asked her to marry me yet, and she's already separating from me. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize for this interruption. And I think what we might do, ladies and gentlemen,
the best with the situation of finances that, according to New York State's algorithm, and this is all on Rosenthal law. You can Google Rosenthal law and you'll see the algorithm right there. Actually, it's also a mediation center that Rosenthal has. But okay, some people are telling me there's too much buffering and so forth on this. But Rosenthal law, you can get information on the New York State algorithm. It's a very easy algorithm, and it should always be used in court in contentious situations or even in amicable ones. The domestic violence matters are a lot more difficult to deal with because there's a lot of other aspects going on, and those should all be submitted to domestic violence court, IDV court. Those should always be submitted there.
Myri, I'm gonna hope that, Myri, I'm gonna hope, and I'm sure our producer will be very flexible. I'm gonna ask him to extend us another couple of minutes because of the obvious interruptions. But at the same token, for time sensitivities, I'm gonna sort of hit you with some, boom, 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 New York State budget questions. And I want you to come on at a later time on our show when we have more quality time, and of course we won't, have these internet interruptions. But when we started having some funny stuff with the internet, I was asking you about teachers and the New York State budget in regards to teachers. What's your feelings about it?
So my mom was a teacher growing up. I had a firsthand glance at what teachers go through to educate their students. And my mom was a very dedicated teacher. And I'm going to want to go through some of the things that teachers do because I want people to understand why their value should always be increased. My mother would call her students' parents individually and tell them how well their children were doing on a regular basis. That might not be on a daily basis. It could have been weekly, but I used to see my mom literally sit at her desk and call each and every one of her parents and say, hey, I just want you to know how well your child is doing. And that was like without parent-teacher conferences. That was like even in between parent-teacher conferences. I would go in and help my mom decorate her boards. She taught foreign language, French and Spanish. So we would decorate the boards around her room, and she would spend her own money on school supplies and work early. She'd be early, work late. She was also writing grants, venture capital grants, so she could take her students abroad to France or London, England, or Madrid.
It sounds like then if you were working as a lobbyist, this is something you would not just advocate for, but probably increase, right?
I would completely advocate for the increase of teacher budget. Teachers need a expense budget. They need expense budgets. And even when I was working on the school leadership team with my colleague Monique McGee, who works on We Love Harlem Initiative with me, we were very cognizant. Even she put in a lot of work in the after school programs and working with the teachers as supplemental support to students and parents. And she would have parents on the edge of their seats listening to like what they were doing in the after school program. So I will say that teachers need expense budgets. After school programs need support. They need budgets for, a lot of times what we found out during what did we find out during the pandemic? How valuable teachers are, because a lot of parents were trying to do their work while their child is trying to be on a conference call at the same time they're trying to be on a conference call. It was a lot. Parents, we also found out the disparities. We found out that some students needed to go to school so they could have food.
Well, children,
and the after school programs.
And parents need something else. Children and parents need housing. Let's talk about the housing piece.
Yes, we can talk about that. There were a lot of,
according to Governor Hochul, she's indicated she wants to put together a 5-year, $25 billion housing plan. The way she has described it is that she says $6 billion is going to go into the capital budget. That $9 billion will be provided through federal tax credit, and $11 billion of it will be geared toward shelters and supportive housing.
Yes, she
So I'd like to
totally
know
is.
both your analysis and your feelings on that.
Okay, so for years, and I mean for years, and this is what we didn't know at first when we were serving on the school leadership team. We were, focused on comprehensive educational plans and making sure children were being educated. But what we didn't realize was more than half of the school population was homeless. And that's insane. So for her to understand that, and I mean, you could see assembly members, I can name some assembly members, some city council members who had been advocating for these kind of inclusions in the budget to
Remember now, the name of the
supplement the
show is
needs.
called Budget and Politics, so feel free to name people if you like.
Well, I will say one name, Latoya Joyner. Like, she was always advocating for the homeless population in her schools and saying we need to find a way um, to support students that are, dealing with homelessness, and trying to find money to put into the budget for that to occur. So it wasn't just her, but there were so many other elected officials that also understood the needs, because when you see students that are coming to school every day, they need food. So, and like I said, Monique McGee, who was working in the after school program, would always supply food to students after school, breakfast food in the morning, in the middle of the day. They needed that, and they needed more than that. There was parents or students there was a parent who broke down to a parent coordinator and said, listen, I really need help. I have my children, we don't have a place to live while my children are going to school. I'm looking for a place for us to live. So we realized that we couldn't really say it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We couldn't say that someone can get to self-actualization without their basic needs met. So that's a good provision in the budget.
Very good. And thank you for breaking that down for me. Still thinking about children. I'm thinking about healthcare. So when I think about healthcare and we turn to the governor's budget, she wants to increase that budget by $10 billion. $4 billion of that strictly in increased wages to the current staff. She also wants to give everyone on staff a $3,000 immediate $3,000 bonus. She doesn't really say it in her budget, but I presume she's implying because they were the first responders, that's her way of thanking them. She didn't say that directly, but that's what I'm looking at by the budget. So she's hoping that with this allocation, she's hoping to grow the workforce in healthcare to as high as 20% in the next 5 years. Again, by not just giving the current staff salary increases, but increasing all those lines. What's your feeling on that?
I feel that because we went through this pandemic, a lot of people felt indebted to nurses, doctors, nurses' aides, everyone. I've always had a great, I always do a lot of research before I pick a physician. And I made sure that I found a good pediatrician for my children, so it's like, that is needed. We do need to support our healthcare. Your life is literally in their hands when you go to the hospital. And so you really want to make sure that they have the equipment that they need, the supports that they need, the funding that they need in order to give the best possible care to patients. So when you think about, if your child is in that hospital bed, your grandma, your aunt, any family member, you want them to get the best quality care. So, that is needed. And I just looked at the health and, I just looked at the hospital budgets and so forth. And there's always a need for quality hospitals. There's always a need for quality care. And I think that is a good.
Which legislator do you believe is leading that charge?
Okay, that's a stunner question for me. I'm gonna say on the assembly level, it's gotta be Reyes because she was a nurse. Like, I'm just saying by default. I don't,
No.
but I would say that it's Corrine Reyes,
And on the
because she
Senate
is a
side?
nurse, and she understands the care and need in the health profession.
And on the
So
Senate
I
side?
would say, and on the Senate side, I I'm not sure on the Senate side, and I'm still, and the city council is so new. So I need to look at who's on that committee. I feel like I know who's on the committee, but right now it's not coming to mind. But
That's okay.
yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and we're going to get away from, well, we're going to still talk about the kids, but now they're not kids anymore. Now they're 18, 19 years old. You're going to be getting there pretty soon, right, Mommy? They're going to be 18, 19 soon. And guess what?
They're
They're going to
going to
want to
be,
drive,
yeah,
right? They're going to want to drive. So now I'm going to ask you
yeah.
about infrastructure. So when we talk about
Okay.
New York State infrastructure, our governor put together a 5-year, $33 billion infrastructure plan. In that plan, she mentions areas such as the Hunt Point interstate access. She mentions the Syracuse I-91 area. She mentions the Buffalo Expressway. She mentions the Livingstone Avenue Bridge up in Albany as her highlights. Do you think that's what we need at this time?
Yes. Anybody who drives in New York City, I always joke. I used to sell cars years ago out of college. People would not know this. I was a car
An
salesperson.
exclusive, all right, an exclusive.
And I'm telling you, we would always say, as soon as a car is driven off the lot, it depreciates. As soon as it's driven off the lot, it depreciates. So, and I used to say, why? Why does that happen? And it was because, when it's driven off the lot, it depreciates, and because you're driving down streets and all these, things are happening to the car to your car as you're driving. So in New York, come on now, as many potholes, and she has the no pothole plan, the no hole plan. I mean, I was laughing when I heard that in her speech, but I will say that definitely we need to pave these streets. We need to, and there's always construction on the highway, like going to the Bronx especially. There's all this construction is not done, and there's just a whole bunch of orange construction things all around it, and fences all in the middle of the highway. And I'm like, come on, y'all. So yes, I'm excited about the infrastructure bill, even from the federal level. Like, infrastructure is definitely needed in the city, especially, if you're getting around, even the buses. You got to think about our mass transit system as well. It doesn't just affect drivers, it affects buses, people riding on the bus. So yes, we do need to get that infrastructure together if we want to
Now,
really
Mari,
build a
this is where you
stronger.
have to help me. Okay, now this is where you have to help me. Because even though I'm a 30-year economist and financial advisor and income tax man, I look at the budget and I still don't understand. Let me tell you what it is I don't understand. The spending part is, it explains itself. Whether I like it or not, it's another story, right? But the numbers go for itself. Now, let's look at the revenue, right? Let's look at the revenue coming in. And I don't know. I look in this budget and I don't see any money coming in. If anything, I see money going out. There are two items in the revenue side, and they're not called tax increases. They're called tax cuts. She wants to, Governor Hochul, in her budget, wants to have the continuation, by the way, she didn't create anything new, the continuation of the Governor Cuomo's middle, what they call middle tax cuts. And then there's a second item in that budget that allows for further cutting for taxes on small businesses. So my question to you, and let me just forewarn you a little bit, we only got about 4 minutes left, but where's this money going to come from? I can't find it in the budget.
So there are PEGs, the program to eliminate the gap. There are set-asides. There's always, and the short version of what they call it, what they used to call it on the federal level, is pork. There's always pork in the budget. There's always excess budget. And agencies, a lot of agencies, and I used to even say this to my deputy commissioner, that you know, even in our work, our program paid for itself, because not just the funding that was coming in to support it, but also there are, you know, when you get a ticket, when you get these things that you have to pay the city, that's where the money's coming from, not just the taxes. So the taxes,
things like fees and things of that nature.
Fees and fines and all, and so I would say,
does that mean
you
your
know,
driver's license fee, whatever it is now, and I believe it's personally outrageous now, is going to be even higher?
It can be outrageous. Any kind of fees, fines that you get when you go to the, you know, be it the DMV or be it and this is what I'm saying about business owners. Business owners, we know, are the lifeblood of our communities. We know that small businesses must be supported because they provide jobs. They provide a lot of services to the community, so they have to be supported. And to constantly tax businesses, there has to be a way. I told my deputy commissioner, we have to evaluate our program, what we're doing, what we're offering, because the point is that we're able to save businesses money. You're able to get more support, economic support to the community. And what you find are a lot of the local businesses will realize, and many of them in Harlem realize this, that when they supported local nonprofit organizations, they could get a tax write-off. So things like that, that's how we got to think more holistically, looking at the picture and understanding that people have, that there's a way to keep our economy rotating in a positive direction.
Mari, I want to have you back on a future show.
Oh, and somebody just said all the tolls.
I want to apologize for all the interruptions that we've had, but I want to I'll be in touch with you for a future segment as a part 2. Sadly, we're going to have to sign off very shortly. So I want to thank you for being with us this afternoon. And you'll get the recording shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at Financial Focus University. We will have Emmanuel Martinez, candidate for the 78th Assembly District, on our next budget and politics segment next Friday, 5 o'clock. Be financially focused and have a great afternoon.